So what is a trachea? It's a windpipe, basically, and whose function is to channel air to the lungs for oxygen diffusion. Other secondary functions include maintaining air temperature, humidity, and trapping airborne particles. And you can see here to the right, just a diagram of how the trachea is. It has these tubes called bronchi. So you have primary bronchi, which is the first right and left segments, and those branch into smaller segments, leading to the terminal alveoli, which is where oxygen diffusion occurs. A little bit about the structure. It's a U-shaped cross-section. The trachea, composed mostly of cartilage and muscle. And so it has these rings, and these rings are what provides it the structural support, the hyaline cartilage rings. And like I mentioned before, it has these branches called primary, secondary, and tertiary bronchi, and it ends at the alveoli. And to the right, we have an image of the angles produced by the primary branches. And so for some people, it's inversed. They have the lungs inversed. But these are usually the angles 20 to 30 and 45 to 55. So a cross-section of the trachea. You can see that the trachea is in front of the esophagus. So this actually produces some complications down the road for people that have, let me see if I remember, tracheoesophageal fistula, where it has a channel that comes into both the esophagus and the trachea, connects both of them, and that usually occurs in pediatric cases. But just so you can get an idea of how the cartilage and muscle tissue that surrounds the trachea looks like. So air will pass through that and then reach to the lungs. So what can go wrong with a trachea? A certain couple of cases can go wrong, but in most cases, the bottom line is that the structural support is compromised, where the air does not reach the lungs as it's supposed to reach down to the trachea. So some of these cases include tracheostenosis. So if there's obstruction where the trachea is too compressed and can't channel that oxygen. You have tracheoesophageal fistula, which is actually here an image to the right, are certain cases, the most popular cases of fistulas that occur. Basically when, like I mentioned earlier, there's a channel that opens between the trachea and the esophagus, and mostly in pediatric cases. So they afterwards have to go surgically remove it and modify it and find a way to connect it to the esophagus as it is in normal anatomy. You also have obstruction and tracheomalacia, which is when there's a cartilage issue that makes it weak and not structurally sound. So it falls within itself. And of course, tracheal cancer. But for most of these cases, it pertains to structural support being compromised. I don't think with the exception of cancer, that's not really helpful there. But the treatment that can be used for that would be a tracheobronchial stent. And so it's going to basically open up that passage for the trachea. And particularly one product that's used is Boston Scientific dynamic wide stents. So this is a product to the right, just to get an idea of how it is to scale. Pretty small. But this is put down someone's trachea. So they usually get a what's it called? Bronchoscope. And bronchoscope just takes you all the way down to the trachea. And they slide it in there with some forceps. And this is a brief case study so you can look at exactly how they do it. But for today, what we're modeling something similar to a tracheobronchial stent, and based off Boston Scientific's dynamic wide stent. And here are the features they'll be incorporating. So this is available online on their product information description. Right, so with that, let's get started. So this here, this window in black is called your window pane, or your graphic window. And it's where you see most of your objects. Here to the left, you have your family tree, or your history design tree. Basically shows you all the features you had in this part from beginning to end. So this would be at the top, the earlier features, and down to the bottom, you can see later features incorporated in this part. And if whenever you want to go back a feature, you can roll this icon, this bar, roll it back up to suppress the features you had in that sequence. And so you can see how this part was made in progression. So that's useful. It's called the rollback feature. Up here to the top, you have some tabs with your features. And most of the features you'll be using are within Sketch, and then we'll be using some features within Extrude, within here, the regular features tab. And for rendering tools, we're going to be using some rendering tools to make it look nice. Here to the top right, we have our command prompt. So if you want to search a feature, you don't know where it's located, but you know the name, we're going to search it here, type in whatever feature you like. Section properties, just to give it an idea of section view. So you can search features. So let's begin. The first thing you want to do when you begin is obviously open a new part. So we're going to go open a new part and start from scratch.
But I still say they're flowers.
If you like.
Do you sell them?
I'm afraid not.
But maybe we can make a deal.
What do you mean?
Oh, you see, you won't have to send them anywhere. I'll pay for them.
They serve the purpose of changing highly commonly doing modern jobs that are as necessary here as the air is on Earth.
But I still say they're flowers.
If you like.
Do you sell them?
I'm afraid not.
But maybe we can make a deal.
What do you mean?
Oh, you see, you won't have to send them anywhere.
So this is a stent so far. Now, what we want to do is actually make this right material properties. There you go. There is your finished part. Now all that's left for you to do is you want to preview it before you render it. So give this a minute for it to initiate the preview window. So now it's done rendering, and basically you would know it's done rendering because it indicates you at the top right of the screen that the render process is complete in terms of percentages. And you're still able to see this, correct? So now you can see the final image rendered. What you want to do now is you want to save it. So you save the image and you give it a nice name. Now that the rendering process is complete, we pretty much reached the end of our session. Key takeaways for today is you learned, what's the list of things you learned? You learned how to do sketch, particularly how to do spline sketching. You also learned how to do linear patterns. You also learned how to do intersections. You learned how to do lofts. And when necessary, you learn how to troubleshoot because there's always bound to be problems when you're modeling. And it's a matter of practice.